Talking Who?
Now, next up, we have, and I'm a bit curious on what this is, Barry's top 5 list. Who's Barry?
Barry Aldridge. Do you remember Barry?
Oh, right, yes.
I'll make Barry. Now, Barry is going to be contributing regularly to Talking Who, and he's going to be doing a top 5 lists.
Right.
And on this particular episode, this is going to be his starting off, so you get to know a bit more about Barry, what his tastes are. He's going to do his top 5 Doctors.
Hello guys, welcome to a brand new feature on Talking Who. My name is Barry Aldridge, and every week I'll be presenting Barry's top 5. Hello, yeah, I'll be talking about different things like Doctors, Companions, top 5 Dalek stories, Cybermen stories, villains, you name it. Anything to do with my top 5s though of Doctor Who, and these are just my opinions, so you don't have to take them too personal, but these are just my views on that. So for the very first week, I'm going to talk about my top 5 favourite Doctors. So these are just my views, and you know, you don't have to agree or disagree, you know, these are just my views, so let's get the ball rolling. At number 5, I have to give it to Sylvester McCoy. Now, he was the very first ever Doctor I ever watched. He was just a great actor. I mean, a lot of people did not like him at all, though, really. Did not like some of his stories and that. But I felt like, yeah, he was really coming to age, though, near around about his 2nd season, that. And he was starting to grow. But by his final season, this was his final season, is that the stories were really quite strong, character development and that, and he brought a sense of darkness though to his Doctor and that, and I really did like it. I thought it was quite cool and that he seemed commanding, he seemed mysterious, and I felt it was really good. It was such a shame though it was brought to an abrupt end in that, and I think he was really come along as a Doctor as well, and I really liked where it was going in that. So, and also yeah, he brought in a great performance in there as well. So that is my 5th favourite Doctor. At number 4, I'm going to have to give it to Christopher Eccleston, the 9th Doctor. Even though he had 1 season, I felt like he still gave in a very, very strong performance in that. It really brought something to life in that. And the emotions that he brought in against the Dalek, you know, when he encountered the Dalek in Dalek, was just amazing. He was like shocked, scared, and I thought, wow, this is really good. He really pushed the envelope a little bit. In my view, though, really, if he had done more than 1 season, I reckon he would have been up there in the top 2. Guaranteed, in my view, because I felt like he was just a phenomenal actor in that. And all the different stories about why he left, we'll never know the real full story, but only time can tell anyway. So yeah, he's my 4th favourite. At number 3, it is in fact the current Doctor, Matt Smith. I think that Matt Smith commands a real presence to the role, really brings in something though to the table. I think he's just someone that makes you think outside the box now. I think he was just someone that was really kind of like fun and watchable and that as well. He brings that alienness back into the Doctor and that. I think he's just wonderful just to have a look at that. And I think he's just got some, and he's also got some great stories as well that bring back the old essence of Doctor Who, which is something I didn't like about with David Tennant though, really, but you know, that's just my own views on that. But yeah, Matt Smith is definitely my 3rd favourite Doctor. At number 2, it is John Pertwee. I love John Pertwee. I mean, he was one of the first Doctors I watched when I got videotape and that, and I'd watch him and that, and I think, wow, he's got a good screen presence in that, and he knows to bring action forward. He was kind of like really heroic, sort of like, some people say a bit dandyish in that, and I think he was just someone that brought it into the table. He had some great stories during his era where it was on Earth or somewhere else, but I think his Earth stories really captivated me in a serious way. He had some very, very good social and political stories in there that were done by writers, and he was able to bring them lively, make them more believable in my view. So John Pertwee's number 2. My number 1 Doctor, well, I think some of you will probably guess this, is in fact Patrick Troughton. The reason is he always brings his A game, no matter what. If it's like a dodgy story like The Dominators, I felt like he still brought his A game tremendously well. I mean, he was just a marvellous actor just to see on the screen. You can never keep your eyes off him as well. You really believed in his performance, so when he wasn't brave to go into a situation, it's like, wow, I think I would be in that scenario as well, you know. And he really cared about certain things. I mean, say like he doesn't want to do something, but he goes the extra mile as well, and that's one thing as well. And then he had such classic stories like The Invasion and The War Games, where he brought his acting level to a high that made you believe that he actually cared about Doctor Who and that. And it would, to me, yeah, he would bring his best performances, even in if a script is kind of like a bit dull, like I said with the Dominators and that. And that is my first top 5, though, guys. You don't have to agree or disagree. That's just my first top 5 of Doctor Who. Thanks very much, though, for watching, and I'll bring you another top 5 next week.
There you go. Barry Aldridge, thank you very much for contributing and hopefully becoming a regular.
So what do you think of that top 5?
Top 5. Okay.
How did it go with your own top 5?
Well, you and me both. I think our number 1 is Tom Baker.
Yes, very much so.
Number 2. I would have John Pertwee number 2. Which is the same as Barry.
Yeah. Because one of the things I found is each Doctor brings his own...
They bring so many different, their own thing
Yes.
to it, and you kind of appreciate them for all sorts of reasons.
I mean, to be honest, the only 2 Doctors I don't particularly enjoy, and it's very odd, one of them's William Hartnell, which is odd because he's the guy...
He's the original.
He's the original. He should be theoretically the definitive, but... and I feel probably not so much the actor's fault, but I really cannot abide any of the Colin Baker stories. But outside of that, you know, I also do have a slight issue on terms of Patrick Troughton in terms of what survives isn't necessarily a very good representation of his best work as... I mean... you can definitely see the quality of him as the Doctor, but stories like the Crotons on the Dominators and the Seeds of Doom on the Seeds of Death. Seeds of Doom was with Crinoid. Seeds of Death are not particularly good stories. Yeah. And yes, a brand new lost episode recently found. 2, 1 Hartnell, 1 Troughton. On the Hartnell one, a classic one from a classic story, all missing. Sadly, the Troughton one was from another clunker.
Yeah, well, you know.
But still, I would rather have no lost episodes or episodes returned from clunker stories than nothing returned at all.
Indeed.
But I'm looking forward to seeing them, especially Galaxy 4.
Moving on, well, we've seen glimpses of the delightful Annie in our Google Hangout. And she's now contributing also now to Talking Who, and we have a video which finally arrived, I think, late last night after lots and lots of problems.
What's this video?
So this is Annie's talking about the unit dating controversy.
Hello, Annie Fairfoul here with my inaugural Talking Who piece. My first topic is the tedious... Exciting, yes, thank you, that's the word.
I'm glad to be of help.
We're looking at the rather exciting unit dating controversy. And no, I'm not talking about who's dating who. I'm talking about UNIT, the Unified Intelligence Task Force, formerly the United Nations Intelligence Task Force. Now, it has caused a lot of temporal grief to a lot of Whovians over the past 40 plus years. Now, let's take a brief look at UNIT's history with dates attached and see how quickly we run into trouble. UNIT first appears in the second Doctor story, The Invasion, which, according to promotional materials at the time, which was 1968, was set in 1975. This despite the miniskirts, transistor radios, and serious lack of disco.
Yes, well, since the Yeti do, I've been in charge of an independent intelligence group that we call UNIT. That's United Nations Intelligence Task Force.
You mean you're like a world secret police?
Not quite. We don't actually arrest people. We just investigate.
Now let's jump ahead about, say, 8 regenerations and listen to what the President of the United States has to say about that.
From now on, UNIT has control of this operation.
You make it sound like an invasion.
First contact policy was decided by the Security Council in 1968.
1968? Now we're in trouble. But let's say we accept 1975 just for now. That means the third Doctor stories are set in the early 80s. And UNIT's extremely dominant during the third Doctor's period because that version of the Doctor was grounded on Earth. And that Earth looked very much like the 1970s. Then, the fourth Doctor comes along, revs up the TARDIS, and takes off with Sarah Jane Smith, who at one point claims she's from 1980, which is fine, until he returns her home to 1978.
But it's absurd. It's just absurd.
Agreed. Carrying on. During the years of these two Doctors, the politics of the day rarely melded with the Whovian worlds. Britain had a king at one point, for instance. So time is very slippery when you're talking UNIT. Take the Brig, for instance, who started out as head of UNIT in 1975, as we know. Except that during the fifth Doctor's time, we find out that he retired in 1976. Had to be a great pension. Ugh. At any rate, at least he kept his hand in.
With respect, Sir Alistair, UNIT has had to adapt to the challenges of a more hostile universe.
In my day, we took on Daleks, Cybermen, Autons, Zygons, and all manner of space thuggery. And it doesn't get more hostile than that.
So, do we have two Sarah Janes sharing a big house in Croydon while the Brigadier is starting and retiring from UNIT within the same year? Of course not. And I'll tell you why. For those of you Whovians who have a particular obsession with these inconsistencies, I have 5 words for you. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, multiverse. No less an authority than the 10th Doctor himself explained.
Used to be easy. When the Time Lords kept their eye on everything, you could pop between realities, home in time for tea. And they died, took it all with them.
Now the TARDIS, as anyone knows who's watched the series, prior to the Time War, could go to any universe at any time, multiple timelines, multiple units. So there you go. It's time to unknot those knickers and find yourselves a more worthy controversy to tackle. For instance, do you suppose that Star Trek did the Cybermen better when they called them the Borg? Annie Fairfoul, out.
Thank you very much, sir. So, UNIT dating controversy.
Yes. Well, when you've got a show that's been going on for the many years Doctor Who has been going on for, covering many generations, you're going to have problems like that arising. And one of the big problems, especially in the 70s and the 80s, they were making the series expecting it to be pretty much shown that one time. Yeah. That was it. And they never thought people were then going to be buying the DVD and going,
trying to make sense of the order of everything.
Really makes sense. There is some big problems with the terrible problems with the UNIT continuity, but we just got to accept that's unfortunately the way it is.
But it's not just UNIT. There's actually problems with continuity for everything. I mean, even this, Cybermen. Cybermen aren't supposed to be time travelers, but yet they go back and forth. But they seem to always remember they're in the adventures, no matter where they are in the universe or which dimension they're in.
And going back to the UNIT controversy, it's interesting. When they made Mordrin undead, when it was originally written, that wasn't supposed to be the Brigadier in that story. It was originally supposed to be Harry Sullivan was supposed to be the character, but Ian Marter wasn't available,